Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. We're going to spend some time saying thank you during this next time on our show. Our guest is Pamela Jane Nye. She's the CEO of Operation Scrubs and Neuroscience Nursing. Last year, she was named the Nurse of the Year. Was it in 2020 that you were named Nurse of the Year?
No, it was some years back. It was closer to the year 2004, I think it was.
I see. Well, they made a mistake. You should have been named Nurse of the Year last year, too.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And Pam is... you're in the you've been in the trenches. You're still in the trenches, working with people on a daily basis. I'm really interested. Are you giving shots, COVID vaccine shots right now? Is that one of your responsibilities?
It is. I was asked to come back to the hospital to help out during this terrible pandemic, and I was very happy to go. There are people that are fearful of the hospital at the moment, but we need to get people vaccinated, and I decided that was one way I could help.
And what is your thoughts about all the vaccines? I mean, Daryl and I have each had shot number 1. I had Moderna. Daryl, do you know what you had?
It was Moderna.
Oh, you got Moderna too, and my son got Moderna. My wife got Moderna. I know there are pluses and minuses with each of them, but the idea is that if we're 80%, I think, vaccinated, that herd immunity can take place and we'll knock this thing out. Is that your understanding too?
It actually is. The vaccines that are available and currently being used are Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Each of them provides coverage, and in different ways. The Pfizer and Moderna are 97% accurate in coverage, 95% accurate, I think it is, with coverage. But Johnson & Johnson comes with an additional plus, and that is it is seemingly, according to the research, available to cover a wider variety of the variants. A variant is something that happens with virus. Virus is able to mutate. Bacteria doesn't do that. And so we're likely to see many iterations, many versions of this same virus. So we're going to have to get herd immunity. And in order for that to happen, it's people like you, the two of you, and me. I'm fully protected now. I also got Moderna. And, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful. There were so many barriers that got us where we are today. I'm feeling more hopeful about the whole world finally getting under control.
Pam, the purpose of Operation Scrubs is pretty basic, pretty simple. It's thank you to the nursing staff in particular. And I think that's terrific. It's what motivated you to do this? I mean, this is a huge undertaking. You're running a company, and at the same time, you're doing this as to give back, and you're also giving shots.
Absolutely. What motivated me, I think, was, number one, the love of nurses. They are a very unusual breed of cat. They have been named most trusted professional 18 years running. And they are the silent majority that keeps the hospital running. I've always admired nurses, even before I was one. And the other thing that motivated me was the public's need to say thank you. And every now and then, when we had a patient in the hospital, and their family was particularly grateful for all the good things they'd received from the nursing staff, we would get a bouquet of flowers or a box of candy or a box of donuts. And you could tell that these families really wanted a meaningful way to say thank you. So they were doing the only thing they could do. What I found was the nurses loved the donuts, we loved the box of candy, but more than anything, they loved the thought and the thank you. We as nurses love it when someone takes an extra minute just to say thank you. For example, I gave an injection to a lady this week, and as a gesture of thank you, she not only remembered my name out of the many people that she must have run into in a day, but she went to Starbucks and bought a gift card for me to get a cup of coffee. This didn't cost her a lot of money, but she put it in a thank you card addressed to me personally, and my hospital leadership sort of bestowed this thank you card on me in front of my colleagues, and it brought tears to my eyes. And it was those kinds of things, realizing there are many, many people out there that are so very grateful for the work of the nurse. 2020 was the year of the nurse. Did you know that? Nobody did.
I did not, but I can understand it. I do understand
and left, and really there was no fanfare. There were no big celebrations. There were no public service announcements, because we were in the midst of political strife. We had racial issues that had come to the surface that like never before. And the pandemic struck, and it was somehow politicized. So the year of the nurse, the work that we do was more or less swept under the carpet. No one really knew. And now, in the midst of the pandemic, and thankfully, I think toward the end of the pandemic, people are more aware of who nurses are and what they do every day, more so than they ever were in the past. And they really desire just to be able to say thank you.
It's interesting. When my mom was ill, I was sure to thank all the nurses at the hospital. She had a caregiver, and we could not have gotten through it without them. What kind of person does it take to be a nurse? To take the guff, if you will, of doctors, the pay that doesn't really stack up, and what goes inside a person's head to become a nurse? And that's both men and women now.
Yes, absolutely. I can't quote you an exact number, but I think something close to 10% of nurses are men. It takes someone who is able to put their own needs second to someone else. They are givers. And, over the years we've had some negative labels put on us like codependent. But you know what? When you're the one laying in the hospital bed and the nurse has to make a decision between going on break and getting some coffee and your needs, guess who comes first? That nurse will take time out of her day, whatever it is, and if you are in need or if you are suffering, if you're in pain, for example, that nurse will move heaven and earth to do whatever is within his or her power to make you better.
Pam, hold on a second. Pam, hold on a second. Do you have time to stay with us a little bit longer?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. All right. Our guest is Pam Jane Nye. She is the CEO of Operation Scrubs and Neuroscience Nursing. We're going to continue our conversation with her. We're jumping ahead a little bit. National Nurses Week is in May, but we want you to be prepared for that a month in advance. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Late Night Health continues.
Welcome to Guide to the Soul. This is Robert Clancy. Your soul is a celestial rain dance upon every starlit night. Allow the rays of today's sunrise to cascade upon your wings so the peace beckoning your soul can take flight. Sorrow-filled moments in life may have made you feel mortal. Just know that divine love is what makes you whole. Your soul was created from the boundless ocean of love. Life is simply about making waves that touch the shores of someone's heart. It's time to release fears. It's time to let this go. It's time to swim in that great ocean.
For more inspiration from Robert Clancy, visit guidetothesoul.com or go to the Moments with Robert page on latenightshealth.com.
The latest from the greatest, the best in new music by classic rockers, with your host, the insane Daryl Wayne.
This is Alice Cooper, and if Daryl Wayne is insane, what does that make me? Criminally insane. Stick around to find out.
Many of the artist interviews for the latest from the greatest have been captured on audiobook. There is a Volume 1 and Volume 2. Great information and conversations with people in the industry and people surrounded by the industry, and of course the rock stars themselves.
I'm the Reverend Al Green, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne. And I said Wayne Insane.
You can find it on Amazon or Blackstone Audio. Search for the latest from the greatest from Daryl Wayne, Darrell Wayne.
Hello, this is Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to the insane Daryl Wayne, aren't you?
Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. Along with the insane Daryl Wayne, we're talking about Operation Scrubs. They have a mission. We're going to talk about that right now with Pamela Jane Nye. She's the CEO of the operation. And you're looking for 1 billion people worldwide to say thank you. And I guess people can do that. There is no charge by going to thankanurse.teamchallenge.org. Did I get that correct?
That is correct. In my career, it's been obvious that the American public is very appreciative of the work of nurses. Now more than ever, they're wanting to express that some way. And they're able to express it one nurse at a time as they run into them. But I know that if there was a way that they could express it in a very short period of time with no cost, very little time involved, to send a very brief message of gratitude, that people would like to do that. And logging on to this website gives you the ability to write a very short message that will become a billboard. And this billboard will be up and running for years and years and years to come. And it's for anyone to log on and say a brief message. Maybe it's a personal message saying, thank you to my daughter who became a nurse, or thank you to the young man who took care of me in the emergency room when I was so very sick. And that's just a sentence. And they'll be able to go to this website, and there will be, like I said, a billboard type thank you. And between now and May 12th, which is this year's National Nurses Week, it actually begins on May 6th through the 12th, you'll be able to do that. The billboard will become up, running, and ready for you and all of your listeners to give a message of thanks.
I think this is terrific. I really do. I think nurses, I mentioned it in the last segment when we were talking, I think nurses are grossly underpaid. They're paid more than they used to be. But they're really in charge of the patient. They do what the doctors tell them to do, but they also have input. And taking care of them includes comfort. I know that watching family members in the hospital with nurses that are caring is just, there's nothing like it. I started to ask you, what makes a good nurse? Why would somebody want to go through all the schooling and become a nurse?
You know, what really makes a good nurse is someone who gives, someone who can recognize and empathize when someone else is suffering. The entire job of a nurse is to care. Now that can be a verb or that can be a noun. And nurses care. They provide science in a way that's understandable to their patients. You know, when a doctor comes in and explains something in scientific terms that the patient may not understand, who do you think sticks around after the doctor leaves to give that same message in real-time language that everyone understands? Nurses
doctors, get up. Doctors, get up. Get off. Hold on a second. Doctors need to do that too. We've talked about that. Doctors need to understand how to communicate better with patients. But yes, nurses are there to help, and I think that's an all-important function.
Yes, absolutely.
Why did you become a nurse? I think you told me before we were on the air that your mom thought you'd become a journalist or a writer?
That's true. I actually was working in a hospital as a medical records transcriptionist, and I would listen to the doctor's dictation as they were talking about the medical problems that their patients suffered. And that was back in the day when we were still using paper, and so at the end of the day I would take all of my typed reports and put them on the paper chart. That tells you how really old I am. Having said that, I would interact with the nurses upstairs, and I would say to myself, oh, they're so smart. They're brilliant. I could never be like them. And a friend of mine said, you know, Pam, you could be like them. And why don't you apply? And I did. I applied to nursing school. Someone in the nursing school dropped out, and I was called 3 or 4 days later and told that if I wanted to be admitted, all I needed to do was say yes. I said yes, and the next week I was sitting in school. I couldn't believe it.
Where did you go to school?
Lightning speed.
Where did you go to school?
Originally in Iowa. Yes, I'm Iowa nice, born and raised. And I started out at a very small little hospital that had a school of nursing. The name of it was Alyn Memorial School of Nursing in Waterloo, Iowa.
Oh, my. That's terrific.
That's a lot of years ago.
A lot of years ago. Did you, and then I know you worked,
then.
And then you came out and you worked at UCLA.
I did. When I left Iowa, I moved to Fresno, where I worked and was in school, and so I was getting, back in the day, the original nurse had what we called a diploma, and so then if you wanted to advance, you needed to get a bachelor's degree. So I was in Fresno, finished my bachelor's degree, applied to graduate school in San Francisco, was admitted to the School of Nursing at the University of California, San Francisco, and studied in the area of neuroscience. So I became a clinical nurse specialist. That's an advanced practice nurse in a specialty area. And my specialty area was neurology, neurosurgery, and stroke.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time working both in the hospital and in the clinic, where I worked in a spine clinic and worked with patients that were undergoing spine surgeries.
That is, that's hard, especially the stroke victims, when they can't communicate if it's a very serious stroke.
That's absolutely correct. My area of interest has been stroke for some years, particularly moving down to Southern California. from the San Francisco Bay Area. I was the stroke coordinator for several hospitals, but when I started my business, Neuroscience Nursing, that was the purpose of my business back then, because recently it was restarted. This business was begun in about 2005 when I started providing consultation to hospitals all over Southern California, helping them come up as primary stroke centers where they could give top-drawer care to patients suffering strokes in the community and being transported by the way of ambulance into their emergency rooms. I continue to do this work today.
Wow. Again, you are a hero.
Thank you. I've never thought of myself as a hero, but you know what? The more I've heard people talk, the more I'm willing to accept that moniker. Yes, I am a hero among many others.
Yeah. Well, we're talking with Pamela Jane Nye. She's the CEO of Operation Scrub and Neuroscience Nursing. She is asking people to help get 1 billion people worldwide to say thank you to the 27 million nurses around the globe. And you can do that by going to thankanurseteamchallenge.org. That's thankanurseteamchallenge.org. I think it's terrific. Do you know how many? How far do we have to go?
How far do we have to go to reach
the billion? Yeah. We're just starting, aren't we? A billion. We're just starting.
We're just launching this program. It's, so your listeners are among the first to hear about this. You will be hearing more about it as we approach May. But the website and the ability to give your message will begin on May 6th through May 12th. And I'm hoping that your listeners are taking notes and will put it into their computers and take a moment to do that.
I think that's a terrific idea. We talked about nursing. Are nurses today more of a partnership with a doctor or not?
They actually are. In the old days, the nurse carried a label called the handmaiden, and we were expected to do exactly what we were told. Certainly not to question authority. But today's nurse is a critical thinker. They know what's normal. They know what is expected medical care. And when they, for whatever reason, don't see that, they question it. And now I'm not shining a negative light on physicians. We are the physician's safety net. If a physician, in error, writes an order for 100 milligrams of morphine, there ought not be a nurse alive today that would give 10 times the dose. We're too intelligent and educated for that. We would stop and we would look at the doctor and we would say to the doctor, did you mean to omit that decimal point? Didn't you mean to write 10 milligrams of morphine? So there are many, many checkpoints between a doctor making a decision for patient care and the nurse actually carrying it out. There's a pharmacy that's involved. There's a nurse that's involved. There are many ways that we try to reduce the number of medical errors that occur. And, of course, we know that that's one of the big topics, medical errors. We try very hard to be the safety net of the doctor.
Got it. Do we have a nurse shortage today?
We don't today, but I see one coming in the future. Many nurses are taking a second hard, long look at what why they entered the profession. Many of them are tired. Many of them are beaten down, and this pandemic hasn't made things any better. Many nurses are looking to the future, and the future of healthcare is going to move out of the hospital and into the community. I know this sounds crazy, but there's research out there that points to the fact that if care can be given to a patient in their home, the infection rates are less, the satisfaction is higher, patients can get well, people will do better in their own beds than in a hospital, laying in a hospital bed. So the future really is the hospital will be a place for the sickest of the sick, and community will be the place where nurses start to go into private practice under the direction of a physician. It's not here yet.
Hold on,
but that's where the future is
we're
going.
running toward the end of our segment. Daryl, do you have any experiences with nurses? Daryl, are you there? I don't know that he is.
Well, hopefully he hasn't suffered a medical emergency because of me.
Yeah, I don't think he has. Listen, we really appreciate your spending some time with us today, and
it's my honor.
And thank you very much. We're going to give that website out one more time. If you want, thank your nurse. Tell them a story. Thank you on the permanent virtual billboard at www.thankanurseteamchallenge.org. That's thankanurseteamchallenge.org. Our guest has been Pamela Jane Nye from Operation Scrubs. Pamela, thank you very much. I'm Mark Alyn. Thank you, Daryl.
No problem.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Join us at latenighthealth.com. We will be back next week. I'm Mark Alyn for Daryl Wayne. And have a good week. Have a safe week. And most importantly, have a healthy week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.